The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of our guests and panel members and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any institution any member of the Nova Society is associated with. The material information presented on the Nova Society is for general information purposes only. Reproduction or dissemination for the purpose other than education is prohibited without express written consent of the Nova Society. We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. Today our panel is going to take a discussion from a recent, I wouldn't say news program, but from actually a kind of documentary presented by Tucker Carlson in Russia. And the question I have is, at what point in time did it become okay to be supportive of Russia? And when did it become all right for Republicans to become more on board with Russia than they are with Ukraine? So let's listen in. Well, one of the questions I have is at what point in time did it become okay to be supportive of Russia? Last week. It's only, just last week, Tucker Carlson goes over and does his shtick over in Russia. Basically says, shows the underground there and how beautiful it is. Well, yeah, when you're a dictator, you can spend as much money as you want on making that happen. The grocery stores are so much better.
They show him what they want to show him.
Exactly. But when did that? If you were to go back into the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, and show something pro-Russian, you wouldn't get a whole big audience.
I think we've discussed this before, so
we have.
Other people can chime in because I think my opinion is known. This is only in the Republican Party.
Well, yeah. And it's obvious, though, Scott. I mean, it is so obvious that it used to be, it was on, parties would be supportive of something, but it would always be kind of like underneath the surface. Nobody ever admitted to being pro this or pro that. But now it has become so obvious. It is so out in the open. And it doesn't seem to resonate. People that are voting, and yeah, you're right. It's the Republican Party, but people that are voting, who the Republican Party always being the hawks, the anti-Russia, anti-Iran, anti-all these, the axis of evil, and the great evil empire, as Reagan put it. That was always their mantra. But now everything that they do, and it's not even under the surface, it's out in the open. Everything that they're doing is very much pro-Russia. And I think it was Mitt Romney said, if your policies are being cheered by Moscow, maybe it's time to think about your policies. But you're not going to hear a lot of people say that.
So I'll just say this about it, and I'll shut up and let other people talk. But I mean, in 2017, the Republicans controlled Congress, right? And they passed a package of sanctions on Russia in retaliation at that time for interference in the election. Republicans did that because everybody knew that Russians had interfered in the election, whether it was decisive or not. I don't know that we'll ever really know. But in any event, that bill was approved overwhelmingly, 98-2 in the Senate. I think 420 or something like that in the House. And Trump was so angry at them that he thought about vetoing the bill, which they would have overrided, certainly. But they said to him, his advisors at that time, early in his administration, said to him that he would look weak if he vetoed that bill. And they convinced him not to. There won't be any of those people in the White House in 2025 should Trump win the White House. None of those people who are going to stop him from being openly pro-Russian are going to be there. And It's simply the rest of the party is falling in line behind him, and the Zelensky refusal to investigate the Bidens when he was holding up their military funding until they did that, which he got impeached for, has only increased the animosity of him and the MAGA people who follow him, lock, stock, and barrel, toward Ukraine. So you've got a double whammy. Not only does Trump love Putin, he hates Ukraine for disobeying him and for the pain that it put him through being impeached. And his followers have fallen behind, predictably.
Yep. I would agree with that. So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this episode. BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert and cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, and Podkite, who does all of our analytics. iHeartRadio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source for music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms. We'd like to thank all of our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershworth, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.